Most of the coaches and parents, which are part of the coaches, tell their players, listen, you're gonna start hitting drives and cross courts, I mean straight and cross court, and then bring the player back. Then once the player is back, you're gonna try to move him with a post or drop shot or drop cross, and then when you go to the front and take the volley, all this stuff, all these things are too much for a kid. Either is under 11, under 15, under 17 even. Plus the stress, there is the stress he's putting into himself, and the stress of the match and the tournament. So we don't want too many things, too many information to be said to the player. So I prefer telling my players, in the first 3 or 4 points, which has the main stress now, both players are stressed, and we're gonna pass this stage, so this phase, so play only drives and cross. We still don't know which side, because we don't know the player, unless you've seen the player play, unless he knows the player, unless you video the same player, so you're gonna watch and know which side you're gonna attack, but I'm speaking as you don't know the player. You're playing an international tournament, you meet most of the players you don't know, so we're gonna focus on the first 3 points, hitting the drives, cross courts, try to play the ball back deep. If you hit a cross court in the corner, that's it. So the player feels like has a mission. He doesn't think of 5-6 shots. This is for the first 3-4 points. After that, it will appear for the coach which side is the preferable side, which side you're gonna use as an attacking side. Then in the first, after we pass the 3rd or 4th point, then the players start like being a bit confident, because he was gonna start hit the ball and move in the court. So the stress is gonna he's gonna lower the stress down automatically. So very important in the first 3-4 points not to tell too much information. Okay? And then he start wherever you're telling him, use the lobs, move the player, kill from the back, but I'm talking in the beginning of the game, especially every game, especially the first game. Okay, for the second game. I'm not gonna speak, actually, I'm gonna speak on the first game, second game, and if there is a final game. So the second game, if your player is winning 1-love, so you're entering the second, you take the break and you're entering the second game, don't say, oh, I'm 1-love up, so I'm gonna start the second game, I'm gonna put pressure on the player, finish the ball quickly to be leading 2 or 3 points, and then the player got rushed. We see a lot of players, they finish the first game leading, and then they start the second game 5-love down, or 5 points down, or 6 points down, because he's rushing. He wants to finish as if he has an appointment. No, you don't have to rush. Maybe you won the first game because the other player is not warmed up. So the beginning of the second game, exactly like the beginning of the first game, the first 3 points, you need to be leading. You need to be sure that you're bringing the player back. You need to dominate the court. You need to be on the tee. So what I'm telling my player is, start the second game, the first 3-4 points, till knows only 1 or 2 things. Here at the drive, and the good thing that I will know from the first game which side. So that time I will tell him, no, we're gonna start hitting on the forehand side, forehand or the backhand, and then you're gonna move the play with a cross court, or we're gonna start like first 3 points hitting drives, or in both sides if there is no particular side, and then after that you're gonna move the player. So the player, when he got to the second game, he's not rushing, he doesn't want to finish the ball automatically, right? And then we Remember, I'm talking on the start of the beginning of every game, not the whole game. What if the player is lost the first game? We talked about players winning the first game. What if the player lost the second game? If the player lost the second game, he shouldn't be nervous, He shouldn't say, I lost the second game, the first game, so if I start a bad start in the second game, I would be too loved down, because all this things goes to the player's mind without our control, and it's very hard not to tell him not to think, So what I'm telling him, the players or the coaches or the parents, that don't, if you're losing the first game, you might lost that game because you're not warmed up, maybe you did a lot of mistakes, you were rushing, so you first, that not the because of the other player is better than you, maybe you lost the first game. So what you need to do is the same thing, is to be patient, is to start to bring the ball, and as we said before, that after the second game, it will be clear for everyone what the strategy you're gonna use, what side you're gonna hit, if you're gonna hit the ball with a quick or hard pace, or you're gonna slow the pace, if you're gonna move the player side to side or from the back to the front. When you go to the front, what you need to drop or finish it in the front, or to hit the ball back. All this will be clear, right? But the beginning of, if you're losing, you have to be patient, you have to hit the ball, bring the player back, then continue the game. We spoke about the first game and the second game, if you're winning or losing. Okay, what about if the games are 2-2 and there is a final game in the match? So first of all, we have to not tell ever the player, listen, this is the last game. If you're gonna win the first 3-4 points, you're gonna win the match. And if you're gonna win, we're not ever, and that we'll speak about it later on in other videos, we don't ever, as coaches, as parents, we don't ever talk about winning or losing, because winning or losing is not ours. You might be playing very good and you use, and the opposite could happen. So and you could be playing very bad and you're winning because the other player is playing worse than you. So it's never like this. You cannot mention the player. You have to win. No, we have to tell the player the start, the beginning. Be patient, make sure your shots, your drives are close to the wall. Try to play it accurate, try to play it deep. If you're gonna hit a cross, avoid playing the cross in the middle of the court. Get the tee, try not to leave the volley, take the ball earlier. So the start of the final game is very important. So if the player is rushing because he needs to win or afraid to lose, or because he's thinking of winning or losing, that means that he might lose 3 or 4 points and would be against him, So I could I tell my players, so try to divide the game into the final game or the fifth game into 3 games. So when you have like a first game to 5, okay, so that would be easier than you think from level to 11. So you think of 5 points, as if in the training sometimes we do points for 5 or to 7 or game to wherever, or game to 15. So I prefer the players start to think not to all, because you need your player to be more focused, you need to be him more concentrating. You don't want to the ups and downs, especially it's a final game, last game. So the first part is to 5. You're playing to 5. So when the player reaches the 3 points, which is the main important points in every game, especially the last game, so in his mind, I have 2 points to finish the game. When he reached 5, then the game is gonna be to 7 or to 9, which is the most critical point of the game, from starting from 5 to 9. And I tell everyone, be patient, especially because 1 point can affect the whole game, the whole match. If you're 5-6 and then you lost 2 points, or you didn't force it errors and there's throw, then you find yourself you're 8-5 down match point in the last game of the match. Then you can lose the whole thing with the stress, with being tired also. And then after 9 or after 8, then the end of the game is going to be 8-9. Don't keep telling him 2 points, 1 point left. So I see parents, come on, last point, last point. All this, you're making the player rush, and you make him want to finish the ball. You want to finish the game without even playing a rally. So we dividing the game, I think it's a good idea and it could help. Also, when in the final game, you're not like the first game, so your power is not like the same as the beginning of the game. So you don't tell him you have to hit the ball, because you have to you consider that he's gonna start being tired. So the most important thing is to tell him to bring the ball back. If you cannot hit the cross, play lob. If you cannot hit cross court hard, play it wide. The most important thing is to be accurate, not harder, to land in the corners. So you gotta put this in mind. Final game, kids starting tired, and all the stress. So that's talked, I think, about all the games. I hope you enjoy it and maybe you benefit from it. And as I said, it's one of the problems that facing. We're gonna keep in the other next videos to speak about some other problems which is common between all the kids. See you soon. Thank you. Please, if you like the video, press like and watch my channel Sports Passion by Medhat.